everyone. There are plenty of seats if some folks want to fill in any of the additional seats before we get started. I'll give you a moment. And the guest of honor. So welcome to a very exciting evening. My name is Maura Curran. I'm the current chair of the Board of Selectmen. I'm so honored and thrilled to be here tonight to dedicate this room and this very important center to Joseph P. Norton. So very excited to have you. I'll speak loudly because I am not sure whether or not this microphone is working, but I also don't want to make those folks watching on TV deaf. So we'll try to do my best here. So I'd like to just initially welcome you all. Joe, you have a lot of friends here, former colleagues, family, and obviously a lot of folks here who you mean the world to. And we welcome you and the rest of the Norton clan that's here, a variety of you, so welcome. Being the newest member to the Board of Selectmen, Joe, I ironically took the place as now being the oldest member. So I fear that I do not have the wisdom that you do, but it certainly is a goal of mine to possess that in the future. I never had the pleasure of sitting next to Joe, but I can say that we weren't always on the same side of an issue, going through different years in our public service. When it came to controversial issues, we would spar, we would debate, but ultimately I do believe that we both departed with respect for one another's opinions and one another's views. And that's why I respect Joe, and that's why I'm so honored to be a part of this dedication to him, because Joe really represents an era in public service where public debate was cordial, respectful, and we really always put our citizens first. And Joe, you always put Scituate citizens first. So thank you, and congratulations for doing that. So as the master ceremonies and as the accolades begin for the next 45 minutes or so, I want to first introduce one of the first speakers here, Representative Jim Cantwell, to have a few words, Joe.
Joe, what a great honor. And this is pretty much, it's a wonderful life, right? Coming the Jimmy Stewart of Scituate here before us. And thinking, Joe, in the many, many years of everything you've done here for Scituate, 30 years on the Board of Selectmen. I met Joe, by the way, and Joby remembers this, because I first met Joe when I still was in college working for a guy named Bill Golden, who was our state senator. And I was appointed to be the person to go around and have to learn things. And Joe, you were always so kind to take me under your wing, as you've done every single person in this room, to teach us, the art of politics. How, as I've already talked about, we didn't always have to agree. I was a big Greenbush fan. You didn't like Greenbush as much, but we still got along famously throughout all the time. But in the 30 years, Joe, there was one article I remember Joe saying he served over 3,000 different public meetings in your time. You led efforts here for Cole Parkway, Widows Walk Golf Course, Scituate Animal Shelter, Town Pier Reconstruction, the Jenkins School Project, the Adoption of Community Preservation Act, Public Facilities Master Plan. Pretty much any good thing that's happened in Scituate, you've had a thumbprint on it. And the note that I had, Joe, with the thousands of friends, with the board, all the board members here who just serve really from your tradition and follow in your good service. But when I first met you, you introduced me to Jerry Dwight. When I think of Jerry, Andrew Zalonis, Don Brown, Ellie Seton Beth, you came in together, Constantine Constantinidis, who's here. There's so many people, it's like the legends of Scituate, and the one commonality, the one thread that brings it all together is you, Joe. So on behalf of the Commonwealth, it's my great pleasure. Would you mind coming up for a moment? And Ann, I need you to come up too, because Ann really is, if one, we all should say a special prayer and thanks to Ann for lending you to service for over these 30 years. So if the two of you will come on up. Now, I saw Joby is here, I know Kim is here, and there has been Kurt, and you have your 4 grandchildren. This really is a family celebration as well as a community celebration. Be it hereby known from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we offer our sincerest congratulations to Joseph P. Norton and Ann for your living here. In dedication, in recognition of the dedication of our Joseph P. Norton Emergency Operations Center in honor of your 30 years of public service with dignity and distinction for the entire town of Scituate. The entire membership of the House of Representatives offers its very hope for future good fortune, continued success in all endeavors. Signed by Bob DeLeo, the Speaker of the House, myself, Jim Cantwell. Congratulations.
little speech that I had written, just a couple things jumped out. First of all, it is an honor to be standing here. Kim, Sheila know exactly what I'm talking about. One of my best friends, the board, Tricia, selected me to say a few words, and it really is an honor. Jim talked about a couple of things that Joe had done while he was on the board. I have half a dozen or 10 that don't even overlap what Jim just said. So, I mean, I'm going to read this because I'm going to mess up if I try to just wing it. So I have to read it. I'm sorry. All right? I also would like to thank everyone for coming out here tonight, this evening, for what I feel is the most well-deserved dedication that I've been involved with in the 21 years as a member of the Board of Selectmen. We gathered here this evening to say thank you to a husband, to a father, to a grandfather, and a very good friend, Joe Norton. Joe first ran for the Board of Selectmen in 1983, served 10 more terms until he retired in 2013. In the 30 years he served, he attended thousands of meetings, voted for things he felt were in the best interest of our community that really helped shape this town to what it is today. Without Joe's experience, knowledge, patience, and dedication, public safety building in this EOC Center wouldn't be here today. To name just some of the accomplishments and committees Joe was personally involved with are the revitalization of Front Street, development of Widows Walk Golf Course, the return of the Green Bush line. Maybe he wasn't in favor of it, but he still did the best what was best for the town of Scituate. All right? Purchase of Young's Boatyard, right there, single-handedly did that deal himself. He was the one to stop the whole thing. I remember it like it was last week. Building of the Maritime Center, the beautification. Every time this group would come in for their budget, the Beautification Commission, Joe would make sure they got exactly what they wanted and then some. Because as we go around town, we all see how wonderful these islands look. Street Acceptance Committee, the Recreation, the Town Report Preparation, Plymouth County Advisory Board, Scituate Public Building Committee, Coastal Zone Management, the Regional Refuse Disposal Planning, the Renewable Energy Committee, and with the Town Administrator and other members of the board, the Public Facility Master Plan. We will know how valuable this room is when we have one of our nor'easters and families and friends are displaced, and all the emergency personnel are gathered here to coordinate the logistics of what needs to take place. How fitting will that be to have our most advanced facility named after Scituate's most popular, most well-liked, and respected person, Joseph B. Norton. In closing, Joe, thank you for everything you've done, Ann, Kim, Joby, and their children, for allowing your husband, dad, and grandfather to spend all that time away from your home to make Scituate a better place to live. Joe, thank
you. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We know, Joe, that you'll have something to say, but I think there are a few more folks that would like to say something. Is that okay? You tell me when you're ready. So I'd like to welcome to the podium Tricia Vincasey, our town administrator, and someone who Joe was an integral part in hiring.
I'm honored and delighted to speak on this auspicious occasion, dedicating this wonderful facility to Joe Norton. Joe is all the things Sean just mentioned and more. In my position, all board members are supposed to be equal, and you are certainly not supposed to have favorites. But I can say, since I'm leaving, that I've worked with 42 selectmen over 3 decades, and Joe is my favorite. That's the truth. Joe was a town administrator's dream, a good listener and sounding board, respectful of the role of the administrator, and a great communicator with other board members. Even though he might have not agreed with something, he never had a bad word to say about anyone. And he always valued the work of employees. When I came in 2009, we had huge financial difficulties, and Joe was the chairman. And he said to me, I don't want anybody to lose their job. And last year, when I was overwhelmed with work, the 3 building projects, and many competing demands, a card came in the mail offering encouragement and strength with passages underlined. And it was from Joe. And Joe, this has been on my desk since the day you sent it. One of my favorite historical figures, who also has ties to Scituate, is Abigail Adams. And she wrote in a letter to John Adams, "It's not in the still calm of life or the repose of a Pacific station that great characters are formed. The habits of a vigorous mind are formed in contending with difficulties. Great necessities call out great virtues. Qualities which would otherwise lay dormant wake into life and form the character of the hero and the statesman." And I want to give you some idea not of the statesman and fine individual we know Joe to be now, but back in the beginning, the very beginning, in his first term in 1983, 84, and 85. Where were you? What was going on in Scituate then? Joe, along with Rich Bowen, joined board members Mr. C., who is here, Andrew Zalonis, and Eleanor Seaton. Dreamwald was being converted into condominiums. The Harbor Masters building was brand new, and so was Kent Village. Central School was being worked on for elderly housing, and cable television was going to be a reality the next year. The Friends of Recreation was established, and in the category Everything Old is New Again, the next year the board executed an agreement with Coastal Zone Management to, quote, examine various alternatives for the protection of the shoreline in Hummerock. $1 million was authorized for the construction of the town pier, and the board instituted new procedures for controlling, quote, the chronic nuisances and bonfires brought about by the 4th of July celebration in Hummerock. 1984. 1985, Joe's first year as chairman marked the formation of the North River Commission, which Joby serves on today. It also brought Hurricane Gloria, the worst storm since the blizzard of '78, with, quote, winds that caused power outages, in some cases up to a full week. But what is the most amazing thing of all, and what is so truly fitting about dedicating this room in Joe's name today, is that the town, quote, developed guidelines and procedures to facilitate the town administrator and appropriate boards and citizen groups to formulate a comprehensive town-wide emergency management plan designed to provide public safety in all large-scale emergencies. So, Joe, this EOC, this building in your name, recognizes all you have done for this town and accomplishes the goals set about 30 years ago. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Tricia. Next, I'd like to welcome Chief Stewart. Chief here? Chief?
Good evening, Joe. Welcome, everyone. Being a government official means making decisions which may not always be in line with those that support you personally or professionally. As a government official, your role and responsibility is to make decisions in the best interests of the town in which you serve. Your decision may not line up with constituents, neighbors, or friends. They need only line up with what you feel is right and in the best interests of all involved: public safety, schools, businesses, and most of all, community. Some decisions are far less complicated than others, but generally, there is always some opposition to the results. This room is the perfect location for the Joe Norton dedication. Whether it is a Board of Selectmen's meeting, a committee meeting, or critical emergency operations, many future decisions will be made in this room. During his 30-year tenure as a member of the Board of Selectmen, Joe Norton was constantly faced with making decisions that would have an impact on his town. His decision-making was based on a simple premise: what is the best for the town of Scituate? When Joe made his decision, he stood by it. Not everyone had to agree with it, but you respected the man who made it. His dedication and commitment to this town as an elected official is unprecedented. To this day, Joe remains a firm supporter of all police department efforts. Joe has asked me countless times over my career, "Mike, what do you need from us?" Or, "What can I do to help?" Joe, congratulations, and thank you for all your help.
And now I'd like to welcome John Murphy, our fire chief.
Thank you, Mara. Good evening. It's an honor to speak on behalf of one of Scituate's most dedicated public servants, Joseph Norton. I first heard of the dedication of the Emergency Operations Center at the Public Safety Complex ribbon cutting from Selectman Harris. When it was announced, it just made sense. Joe Norton, a man who dedicated most of his life, adult life, to serve the citizens of Scituate as a selectman and always a supporter of public safety. Many do not realize the time and effort it takes to be a selectman. Many decisions are often criticized for doing what you feel is best for our community. The ongoing board meetings, committee meetings, and public events that need to be attended on a monthly basis. I would like to thank the past, the present, and the future selectmen for their dedicated service to our town. These commitments always mean less time with your family and friends, and this often goes unnoticed or underappreciated. Joe, you did this for 30 years. I want to personally thank you for your dedication and wisdom during these years that has helped make Scituate the great community it is today. Looking back, I can always remember you taking the time to talk with anyone who had a question or someone who just wanted to say hello. The conversation would almost always end with a handshake and a smile. Nobody bats 1,000. Joe, there's no doubt that you deserve the dedication of the Emergency Operations Center to be named after you for your dedicated service to the great town of Scituate. Your name will live on for many years to come in appreciation for what you have accomplished for our community. I would like to say it's an honor to have this Emergency Operations Center in your name. And in closing, on behalf of the Scituate Fire Department, I'd like to present you with a small token of appreciation.
And now, Joe, did you want to say anything? I don't know. It's up to you.
It's up to me as they go, but
Come on now. You got to have that last Irish word in.
Humility is not one of my greatest qualities, but I accept this honor here with a great deal of humility tonight, and I cannot say enough about how I feel. I appreciate it so much. I look around at this crowd, and I look at the nice crowd and the words that were said, the beautiful words that were said, and Jim Campbell, I think I might run again. No, that's not going to happen. And, we have two great candidates, Karen Canfield, Keith Wallow, running for selectman this year. They're both good candidates, and both will be a credit to the town of Scituate. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen. I want to thank Tricia for making this night possible for me and for my family. We certainly appreciate it. I want to thank my family. It was mentioned earlier about the sacrifices that family makes when someone devotes days and nights to the work of helping a town. And I appreciate all you've done and all you've done here for me, because it wouldn't have been possible without you. I also want to acknowledge and recognize my grandchildren, and Peter and Tessa, and Patrick and Trey. And I do that just because I can do it. And I know it's embarrassing, and they hate it, but that's what grandfathers are for, doing things like that. Tricia spoke of many things that have been done during my tenure, and said very nice things and gave some nice praise to me. However, let me say something. Tricia's leaving in a couple of weeks, as she referred to in her remarks. I've worked with, I don't know how many town administrators, and taking nothing away from any of them. Tricia Bencasey worked harder and longer than any town administrator I've ever come in contact with. She was here first thing in the morning. She didn't leave till after the town hall closed. And from there she went to meetings, whether it be advisory board, whether it be selectmen, whether it be public buildings, that went on 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I cannot say enough on how easy she made my job, and I'm sure the other selectmen share those thoughts. So thank you, Tricia, wherever you are. There you are. You made it easier for me. And when we go forward, let me tell one story. Back, that'll be 2009, 2010, Tricia called a meeting, and maybe a second year here as town administrator. And we were down the Maritime Center, and we had the selectmen's meeting down there. And at that time, Tricia outlined her vision for the town of Scituate. She talked of the infrastructure. She talked of expanding the sewer system for environmental issues. She talked about the water pipes, which were 100 years old, over 100 years in some cases, and how they had to be replaced. She talked about capital projects and the decisions and the tough decisions that had to be made about those capital projects, because they cost money, whether it be a school, whether it be a library, whether it be a senior center, which hopefully we'll soon have. This building. He talked about all these things. And that was back in 2009. And if it wasn't for her dedication and her hard work and their effort, this building would not be here. And other buildings in town that we're so proud of would not be here. So thank you. Thank you. I accept this in behalf of myself and my family, but I also want to share it with other people. I promise I'll cut the second hour of my speech out. So. Before I go on, there's something else I have to do, and I don't want to lose this. There's someone here tonight that I absolutely have to acknowledge. He's one of a kind. When I came to Scituate, when I was working in the State House at the time, and an early supporter of mine came to me and said, "Joe, there's a job open, a banking job at Rockland Trust. You have to do it. You'll be perfect for it." It was 30 some odd years ago. Jane Fallon is the person I'm talking about. So I said to Jane, Jane, I can't go into banking. I don't know anything about banking. No, dear, don't worry. I said, Jane, I don't know a debit from a credit. I know nothing about banking. She looked at me and she said, "Oh, that's all right, dear. They don't either." 30 years later, I don't know much more about banking. But thank God, they don't either. So Jane, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for you being my friend. You're the best. I'll try to wrap this up quickly. I accept this on tonight, and as I've said a couple of times, how much I appreciate it. But I accept it on behalf of a lot of people. I accept it on behalf of all the people who volunteer on a daily and weekly basis to go to meetings, town meetings, to committee meetings, to help do their part to give a little bit back to the town. I accept it for the people who volunteer, whether it be at the animal shelter, whether it be at the library, whether it be at the school, whether it be at the senior center, and for all they do in giving back to the town. I accept it for the people who work on the islands in town, the beautiful islands that People volunteer to weed and water and plant flowers, and then down in the harbor where they have flower boxes, and someone spends time and money making sure that they're just beautiful all during the summer. So I accept it on behalf of all those people. I accept it on behalf of the people who work so hard on a daily basis fighting the terrible opiate addiction problem in this country, and this state, and this town. The FACTS group in this town is just remarkable, and they're constantly working to help people who are stricken with this addiction and the families that are also affected by it. I accept it on behalf of the Course Foundation, who work with special needs children, our most precious inhabitants in this town as far as I'm concerned. And they work tirelessly with these young men and young women, giving them a better life. And we thank them, and I accept it on behalf of them. There's so much. I know I'm leaving people out. I know I either forget about them or I don't know who they are. But you know who you are, and they know who they are. And I'll leave it this way. This one's for you. This dedication is for you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Everybody else can sit down, but I'd like to invite you up. Joe, Tricia, Tony, John, and Sean, come up. We have a special unveiling of the plaque. If I can move this over to the
I thought you
side.
wanted the second hour of my speech.
That would be fine too. So we're going to have Sean unveil it so we can see.
Okay, Sean can do that. He's good at that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that concludes our ceremony, but we invite you all for some food and drink and to have a conversation with Joe. The food is outside in the hallway, so please feel free to spend some time with Joe. Very worthy honor to be here, Joe. Once again, congratulations.
Thank you.